There is a kind of strength that doesn't shout, doesn't boast, doesn't need validation, but radiates peace, balance, and purpose. And that strength lies quietly in the heart of a woman who walks hand in hand with God. Not a God of one religion, but the divine source that breathes life into all existence. She may face storms. She may walk through fire. But nothing outside her can destroy what's inside her. Because her strength is not just made of willpower, it's made of wisdom. Her steps are not driven by noise, they are guided by a deep inner silence that listens to something higher. Today, I want to speak to that woman. The one who doesn't wait for permission to rise. The one who feels alone sometimes. Misunderstood often, but still chooses to be kind. The one who gives even when she's tired and loves even when she's healing. And if you are that woman, or becoming her, then listen closely, because these are the truths you must embrace if you truly want to thrive, not just survive. These truths are not just words, they are spiritual tools, carved not from books, but from the inner battlefields of the soul. From the lessons life teaches when you walk not by fear, but by faith in the one who created you with purpose. You are complete, not lacking. This truth is not just a comforting phrase. It is a deep spiritual reminder, a divine affirmation that many of us forget in a world constantly trying to tell us otherwise. Every advertisement, every social media post, every comparison we fall into quietly whispers, "You're missing something." It tells you that you're not tall enough, not thin enough, not rich enough, not smart enough, not desirable enough. But these are only illusions, noise from the world that tries to cover the divine reality planted deep within your soul. The truth is, you came into this world whole, not flawless, not finished, but whole. And everything you truly need to thrive is already within you, waiting to be recognized. Look at a tree. Before it becomes tall and strong, it is a seed. That tiny seed may look insignificant, but it contains everything it needs to become a mighty tree. It only requires the right environment, the right time, and trust in the natural process. You are that seed. You are created by a loving, intelligent God who placed within you every ounce of strength, compassion, resilience, and wisdom you will ever need. Life doesn't make you whole. It helps you realize your wholeness. Yet most of us spend our lives chasing after things and people, hoping they will fill a gap we believe exists within us. A woman might think, once I get married, I'll be complete. Then marriage brings its own challenges. She thinks, once I have children, I'll feel fulfilled. Then motherhood, beautiful as it is, brings exhaustion and sacrifice. Others say, once I get that job, that house, that body, that approval, then I'll finally feel complete. But again and again, we find that no external success can fix an internal misunderstanding. Why? Because we are trying to patch a wound that doesn't exist. The real pain comes from forgetting who we already are. A woman connected to her spiritual essence knows that her value is not in her achievements or relationships. It's not in how many people admire her, how perfectly her life appears on the outside. Her value comes from her origin, from God, from the divine, from the sacred breath that gave her life. And when you know where you came from, you stop doubting your worth. You begin to walk differently. You no longer beg for love. You radiate it. You stop seeking validation. You become your own biggest encourager. You don't compete, you rise. Because you know, deeply, you were never meant to be anyone else. You are not a puzzle with missing pieces. You are not a half looking for your other half. You are a whole soul, and anyone who comes into your life is meant to add to your light, not complete it. Imagine waking up one morning and deciding, today, I will no longer believe the lie that I need to be more to be worthy. Today, I will embrace myself as I am. Not perfect, but complete. That small shift can change the way you talk to yourself, the way you treat your body, the way you allow people to treat you. It frees you from the exhausting chase of becoming enough. Because you realize, You always were. This is not about arrogance or false confidence. It's about spiritual grounding. A flower doesn't need to compare itself to another flower to bloom. It just needs sunlight, water, and patience. In the same way, a woman doesn't need to prove her worth. She needs to nurture it. She needs to stay rooted in the quiet, knowing that God didn't make a mistake when He made her. He didn't forget anything. He didn't create her with holes to be filled by others. He created her with depth, with intention, with divine design. Yes, life will try to shake that truth. Rejections, failures, betrayals, and heartbreaks will come. But these are not signs that you're broken. They're opportunities to remember your wholeness. When someone leaves, it doesn't mean you're incomplete. When you fail, it doesn't mean you're incapable. When life slows down, it doesn't mean you're behind. It means the divine is gently reminding you to return to yourself, to stop searching outside for what already lives within. So take a moment right now. Breathe deeply, place your hand on your heart, and remind yourself, I am complete, I am enough, I am not waiting to be loved, I am love. I am not lacking, I am learning. I am not broken, I am becoming. Say it until the noise quiets. Say it until the fear fades. Say it until you believe it, because it's true. A strong woman doesn't just endure, she thrives. And she thrives not because she has it all together, but because she has come home to herself. She stands in the light of her own being. She partners with God, not to fix herself, but to discover the treasure she already is. And that is where true power begins. Silence is your superpower. Not the silence of suppression, not the silence of fear or helplessness, but the silence that comes from inner stability. The kind of silence that knows exactly what it's doing. It's the silence of a woman who does not rush to prove herself, who does not waste her energy on every opinion, who does not feel the need to speak every time she is challenged. It is the silence of calm awareness, the powerful pause before a response, the sacred space between stimulus and action. And in that space, there is wisdom. In that space, there is God. In our daily lives, we are constantly pulled in every direction. People speak with anger, with judgment, with assumption. The world teaches us that if we don't respond instantly, we are weak. That if we don't fight back, we are passive. But strength is not always loud. True strength is restraint. It is choosing silence when your ego wants to roar. It is walking away without explaining yourself to people who never cared to understand. It is the quiet confidence that doesn't need to shout to be heard by the right hearts. Think of the ocean. Its waves make noise, but its depth is silent. Shallow waters are always the most restless. But deep waters, they remain undisturbed. That is the kind of strength that a thriving woman holds. She may be soft-spoken, but her silence speaks volumes. She may smile when insulted, not because she agrees, but because she sees the battle is not worth fighting. She knows who she is. She's connected to something higher than approval. She's anchored in something stronger than emotion. And that connection is what keeps her grounded when everything around her tries to shake her. In relationships, this silence becomes a tool of peace. When arguments rise, she chooses to listen, not because she has nothing to say, but because she knows not all fights are worth her voice. She doesn't use silence to punish others. She uses it to preserve her own energy. There's a difference. Punishing silence is rooted in ego. Sacred silence is rooted in wisdom. She knows that words said in anger are often regretted later. She knows that reacting impulsively can damage more than it can heal. So she breathes, she observes, she reflects, and only then does she respond, if response is even necessary. In the workplace, she is the one who doesn't brag, yet her work speaks for itself. When others compete to be noticed, she remains focused. While others seek attention, she seeks excellence. She lets her results do the talking. And even when overlooked, she doesn't complain. Because her inner silence tells her, God sees everything. My efforts are not in vain. This belief gives her peace in the waiting, grace in the face of delay. And slowly, but surely, she rises. Not by shouting louder, but by standing firmer. Even in times of heartbreak, silence becomes her healing space. When the world asks, "Why aren't you posting about it? Why aren't you lashing out?" she chooses to suffer with dignity. She chooses to grow in the dark like roots do. She understands that not every pain needs to be broadcasted. Some healing happens in silence. Some prayers are not meant to be loud. They're just a whisper between the soil and God. And in those moments, when she feels the most alone, she discovers the most sacred companionship, the presence of the divine. That's when she realizes silence is not emptiness. It's full of truth. It's the space where clarity speaks. It's where strength is born. From daily life, you see it all the time. That woman in your neighborhood who quietly takes care of her sick parents without asking for praise. The one who handles crisis with calmness when everyone else is panicking. The one who walks away from toxic people, not with drama, but with quiet dignity. You wonder where her strength comes from. It's not her voice, it's her silence. She has learned the art of not reacting to everything. She knows that the loudest one in the room is not always the strongest. She chooses peace over noise. She chooses depth over drama. She chooses God over ego. And here's the beauty. Anyone can develop this silence. It's not a personality trait, it's a spiritual practice. You don't need to change who you are. You just need to return to who you are beneath all the noise. You need to spend time with yourself. You need to create moments where you sit with your emotions instead of spilling them out. You need to pray, not to speak to God only, but to hear Him. Because God often speaks the loudest in silence. So the next time you feel the urge to defend yourself, to prove your point, to get the last word, pause. Breathe. Ask yourself, will this bring me peace or just temporary relief? The next time someone misunderstands you, remember, not everyone deserves an explanation. Some people don't need to hear your truth. They need to see your silence. That is where your power lies. The woman who thrives is not always the loudest in the room. Sometimes she's the quietest, but don't mistake that quietness for weakness. Her silence is full of prayers, full of purpose, full of power. And that power can't be shaken. Because it's not built on the noise of the world. It's built on the voice of God within her. Your worth is not negotiable. This is not just a statement. It's a truth that should live in your every heartbeat, echo in your every thought, and guide every decision you make. You were created with care, with divine precision, not as a random existence, but as a purposeful expression of the divine. Your worth was never tied to how much others see in you. It was sealed the moment life was breathed into you by God. And no rejection, failure, or opinion can take that away. The problem is, we often forget this truth, especially in a world that constantly tries to convince us that we must earn our value. From a young age, many women are subtly taught that their worth is connected to how pleasing they are to others, how they look, how they behave, how well they perform, how much they give. And so, many begin to live as if they must constantly prove themselves worthy of love, of respect, of belonging. But this mindset leads to exhaustion. When you think your worth is negotiable, you begin to tolerate what you were never meant to accept. You allow people to treat you poorly. You shrink your voice to avoid conflict. You overextend yourself to be liked. And somewhere in this chase, you lose connection to the unshakable truth that you are already enough. Let's bring it down to something familiar. Imagine a diamond. Whether it lies on the floor of a dirty street or sits in the crown of a queen, its value doesn't change. It may be unrecognized, it may be hidden, but it remains priceless. You are that diamond. People's inability to see your value doesn't make you any less valuable. Sometimes, you may find yourself surrounded by those who cannot recognize your light. Not because you lack brilliance, but because they are wearing blindfolds of their own ignorance, ego, or insecurity that has nothing to do with you. Think about the woman who gives her all in a relationship only to be taken for granted. She begins to wonder, what is wrong with me? Why am I not enough? But that question comes from a place of forgetting. She forgot that love is not about earning worth, it's about sharing it. She forgot that someone else's inability to appreciate her does not mean she is lacking. When a woman knows her worth, she doesn't beg to be seen. She doesn't stay where she is disrespected. She knows when to walk away. Not because she is heartless, but because she has finally remembered who she is. Even in professional life, this truth shows up. A woman works tirelessly, contributes beyond expectation, yet is overlooked for promotions. It hurts. It's frustrating. But again, she has two choices: to let experience define her value, or to remind herself, their failure to recognize me is not a measure of my capacity. I will not let their blindness dim my light. And so, she keeps shining, not for recognition, but because it's her nature to shine. She trusts that in time, the right eyes will see. And even if they don't, her work remains a reflection of her inner worth, not a currency to be traded for approval. This truth is especially important in friendships and family settings where emotional expectations run high. Sometimes, the people closest to you are the ones who try to define your value based on what you do for them. But love that demands you to sacrifice your self-worth is not love. It is emotional dependency. A woman who knows her worth doesn't need to be loud or confrontational. She simply sets quiet boundaries. She doesn't argue for her value. She lives it. And people learn quickly how to treat someone who walks in alignment with their own divinity. You see, true self-worth doesn't come from the outside. It comes from knowing your source. When you understand that you were created by the divine, not as an accident, not as an afterthought, but as a deliberate, intentional soul, then everything changes. You begin to see your body not as something to criticize, but as a sacred vessel. You begin to speak to yourself with gentleness. You begin to make choices that reflect your value. You stop allowing temporary feelings to cause permanent damage to your spirit. Because now, you are not here to be everything for everyone. You are here to be aligned with your purpose, to honor your soul, and to protect your peace. And the most powerful part, when a woman finally realizes her worth is not negotiable, the world starts to adjust around her. She no longer attracts people who only want to take. She starts to draw in those who value, respect, and celebrate her essence. Her standards shift, her circle refines, and her path becomes clearer, not because the world has changed, but because she did. So the next time you feel inadequate, unworthy, or invisible, remind yourself you are not created to be perfect. You are created to be whole. Your worth is not found in someone's compliments, attention, or approval. Your worth is in your being, your breath, your divine design. It is the quiet flame that cannot be extinguished by rejection, failure, or criticism. It is permanent. It is sacred. It is non-negotiable. Own it, walk in it, live from it. Because when you do, you won't just survive, you'll thrive. Pain is a pathway, not a punishment. This is one of the most powerful truths a strong woman must embrace if she truly wants to thrive. Because pain is inevitable. It visits every life, knocks on every door, touches every soul at some point. But the value being chosen, the way we interpret pain determines whether it will destroy us or develop us. A woman who sees pain as punishment spends her life asking, why me? But a woman who sees pain as a pathway asks, what is this teaching me? She understands that her suffering is not a sign of divine anger. It is a signal that something within her is being reshaped, transformed, and elevated. Look at nature. A seed must be buried in darkness before it can break open and grow. The butterfly must struggle in the cocoon before it can fly. Even gold must be melted in fire before it shines. And so it is with us. The deepest strength, the purest wisdom, and the most profound compassion are often born through pain. Not because pain is beautiful, but because what we become through pain can be. When a woman goes through heartbreak, loss, failure, or betrayal, something sacred is happening beneath the surface. She is being invited, not punished, to a new level of understanding. But in the moment, pain feels heavy, unfair, and unbearable. And that's okay. It is natural to cry. It is human to feel broken. It is normal to question. But within those very emotions lies an opportunity, a doorway to your most awakened self. Think of a time you were hurt deeply. Maybe someone you trusted disappointed you. Maybe you gave your best and it still wasn't enough. Maybe you were left when you needed someone the most. In that moment, you might have felt small, rejected, invisible. But what happened afterward? Eventually you rose. You learned to stand again. You discovered new boundaries, new clarity, and a new connection to your inner strength. That is the gift hidden inside the age. Many women try to escape pain by pretending it doesn't exist. They bury their emotions. They smile through the storm. They stay busy, hoping to outrun the hurt. But the pain doesn't go away. It just waits. And it whispers at night when everything else is quiet. You see, pain doesn't come to ruin you. It comes to reveal the parts of you that need healing. It comes to peel away the illusions. It comes to show you how much you've been carrying that you were never meant to hold. And when you allow yourself to feel it fully, to sit with it without judgment, it begins to shift. It begins to show you the way forward. Imagine a woman going through a painful breakup. Her world feels like it's collapsing. But instead of running back or blaming herself, she chooses to sit with her emotions. She journals. She prays. She cries. She reflects. She asks herself, what was I truly seeking in this person? What wound was I trying to cover? And slowly, she realizes that the pain wasn't just about losing someone. It was about finally facing the emptiness she had ignored for years. In this moment, her pain becomes her teacher. It shows her that she was never really lonely. She was disconnected from herself. And now she begins the journey back, not to a person, but to her own soul. Or consider the woman who fails at something she worked hard for. A business, an exam, a dream. The world may call it failure, but she begins to see it differently. She understands that the failure didn't come to stop her. It came to redirect her, to refine her strategy, to humble her pride, to deepen her faith. And eventually, she finds herself on a path that feels more aligned, more fulfilling, more authentic. She wouldn't have found this path without the pain. The closed door led her to the right one. This doesn't mean we should desire pain. No, but we must honor it when it comes. We must stop seeing it as punishment and start seeing it as part of the sacred contract of growth. A strong woman doesn't escape pain. She transforms through it. She learns to trust that life is not cruel and God is not absent. Even in the darkest nights, there is a light guiding her steps. Even when she feels most alone, there is a presence holding her close. And that trust becomes her power. When you see pain as a pathway, something shifts in you. You stop resisting life's challenges. You start cooperating with the lessons. You move through your struggles not with despair, but with a quiet hope that this too is leading you somewhere. And it always is. Because nothing in your life is wasted, not a single tear, not a single sleepless night, not a single moment of confusion. All of it is shaping you, refining you, preparing you for something greater. So, let the pain come, but don't let it stay as suffering. Let it pass through you. Let it teach you. Let it open you to the deeper strength you didn't know you had. Because once you've walked through fire and come out still standing, you'll never again doubt your power. You'll look back and say, that pain didn't break me. It built me. And that is when you truly begin to thrive. Boundaries are a form of self-respect. This truth is one of the most misunderstood yet most essential truths that every strong woman must embrace if she truly wants to thrive. Boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They are bridges that show people how to connect with you respectfully. They are not acts of selfishness. They are declarations of self-worth. A woman who has learned the value of boundaries is not cold. She is clear. She's not difficult, she's discerning. She doesn't push people away. She simply refuses to shrink for the comfort of others anymore. She understands that protecting her peace, her energy, and her values is not a luxury. It's a necessity. Too often, we confuse kindness with self-abandonment. We think being loving means saying yes to everything, giving endlessly, tolerating behavior that drains us, and staying silent to keep the peace. But peace without self-respect is not peace. It is suppression. It is the slow death of authenticity. And a woman cannot thrive while constantly betraying herself. The moment she learns to say no, without guilt, to walk away from what dishonors her spirit, and to choose alignment over approval, that is the moment she begins to rise. Imagine a woman who constantly says yes at work, even when her plate is overflowing. She's praised for being dependable, a team player, always available. But inside, she's drowning. Her weekends are consumed by unfinished tasks. Her mind is never at rest. She skips meals, cancels personal plans, and loses sleep just to keep up. And the worst part, she believes this is what makes her valuable. She believes that sacrificing herself is how she earns her place. Until one day, her body forces her to pause. Fatigue becomes illness. Anxiety becomes exhaustion. And in the silence of burnout, she hears a deeper truth. Your value does not lie in your ability to endure everything. It lies in your ability to honor yourself. Or think about the woman in a relationship where she is constantly giving, constantly forgiving, constantly excusing poor behavior. She tells herself, he will change. He loves me. I just need to be more patient. But with every compromise, she feels more invisible. Her boundaries are crossed again and again, not because she's weak, but because she's afraid. Afraid of being alone, afraid of being seen as unloving. But eventually, something inside her awakens. She realizes love is not meant to be begged for. She realizes love that requires her to silence her needs is not love at all. It is attachment wrapped in fear. And so she begins the hardest journey of all, the journey back to herself. She starts to set boundaries, not to punish, but to protect. Not to control, but to heal. This shift is not always welcomed. People may call her selfish, dramatic, or distant. But that's only because they benefited from her lack of boundaries. The people who truly love her will adjust. They will understand. Because boundaries are not about controlling others. They are about teaching others how to love you better. A woman who knows her worth no longer allows guilt to manipulate her. She knows that saying no to others is often saying yes to herself, her health, her joy, her calling. In daily life, boundaries can be simple yet powerful. Not answering work calls after a certain time. Saying no to social gatherings that feel draining. Protecting time for rest, for prayer, for solitude. Refusing to engage in gossip, to entertain negativity, or to accept disrespect, even in the name of politeness. These small choices create a big shift in how you experience life. They bring clarity, they bring peace, they bring empowerment. You no longer feel pulled in all directions because you have chosen your direction. You no longer feel resentful because you are no longer overextending. You finally have space to breathe, to grow, to thrive. It's important to understand that boundaries are not built in anger. They are built in love. Love for your body, your mind, your time, your soul. A woman who sets boundaries is not saying, I don't care about others. She's saying, I care about myself enough to not be lost in others. And that care becomes her compass. She becomes more present, more intentional, more alive. She stops performing and starts living. She no longer gives from a place of depletion, but from a place of overflow. And in that space, she attracts different energy, people who respect her, not because she demands it, but because she carries it. opportunities that align with her values, not because she chases them, but because she's in harmony with herself. She becomes magnetic, not through perfection, but through presence, through authenticity, through the quiet confidence of a woman who knows what she stands for and refuses to settle for less. So if you've been struggling to draw that line, to say that no, to walk away from what's hurting your spirit, remember this: boundaries are not rejection, they are protection. They are not a sign of separation, they are signs of sacred space. And the more you honor that space, the more your life will begin to reflect the peace, purpose, and power that you were always meant to live in. Because a woman who respects herself deeply and unapologetically becomes unstoppable. Let go to let God lead. This truth sounds simple, yet is one of the most difficult and most liberating lessons a strong woman ever learns. We often try to hold everything together: our plans, our relationships, our reputation, our goals. As if the whole world will collapse if we loosen our grip. We try to fix everything, understand everything, control every outcome. But life doesn't work that way. And the harder we hold on, the more anxious we become. Real strength isn't about controlling everything. It's about trusting that when you let go, a higher wisdom will take over. It's about surrendering the illusion of control and choosing the peace of divine alignment. A woman who lets go is not weak, she is wise. She knows that holding on too tightly to something that's not working is not loyalty. It's fear. She knows that forcing things to happen on her timeline is not power. It's pride. And pride is heavy. Control is heavy. But surrender is light. It doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop carrying the burden alone. It means you acknowledge, I've done my part. Now, I'll let the one who sees beyond what I can see take the lead. I think about the woman who pours her heart into a relationship, but the more she gives, the more distant the other person becomes. She tries harder. She becomes more patient, more forgiving, more accommodating. But nothing changes. She cries at night, wondering what she's doing wrong. Her heart tells her to stay, her soul tells her to leave, and her mind is caught in the jaws of what if. Finally, when she's exhausted from trying, she sits in silence and prays, not for answers, but for clarity. And in that quiet surrender, something shifts. She realizes that letting go is not giving up. It's giving in to something wiser. It's trusting that if something is meant for her, it will never require her to lose herself. Or think of the woman who has mapped out her entire life. Her education, her career, her goals. She has a clear vision, and she works hard every day to achieve it. But life begins to detour. Opportunities close, doors don't open, and timelines begin to blur. At first, she resists, she fights to keep her plan alive. But nothing works. Eventually, in a moment of stillness, she feels a quiet nudge within, an invitation to surrender, to stop fighting what is, and to trust that perhaps the delay is not a denial, but divine redirection. She loosens her grip and allows life to guide her. And in doing so, she discovers a path she never imagined, one that feels more aligned, more purposeful, more free. Letting go doesn't always mean walking away. Sometimes it means releasing the expectations we've placed on people, situations, and even ourselves. It means understanding that we are not in control of how others behave, what they choose, or how they respond. But we are in control of how we respond. And choosing peace is never a loss. Letting go of the need to be right, the need to be perfect, the need to be everything for everyone. That is when your spirit can finally breathe. There's a story in every woman's life where she tried to hold on longer than she should have, where she tried to make something work just because she believed it had to work. But looking back, she realizes that the moment she let go was the moment she truly began to grow. Because surrender is not a sign of weakness. It's a sacred step of trust. Trust that God is not absent. Trust that what you release will return if it's meant to. Trust that what you lose is making space for something more aligned. Trust that the delay is not the end. It's divine timing at work. In daily life, this could look like letting go of the need to impress others, to always be seen as strong, composed, and put together. It could mean allowing yourself to rest when your body is tired, instead of pushing through out of guilt. It could mean letting go of the past, of resentment, of pain you've carried for too long. Not because it didn't matter, but because carrying it is costing you your peace. Letting God lead doesn't mean you do nothing. It means you do your part with intention and then release the outcome with faith. You plant the seed, you water it, and then you trust the soil. You speak your truth, and then you allow life to respond in its own time. You make your choices, and then you surrender the results. Because control can only take you so far. But trust will take you beyond your limits. A woman who thrives is not the one who has everything figured out. She is the one who walks each day with an open heart, a willing spirit, and a quiet faith. She knows that life may not always go according to her plan, but it always unfolds according to a higher purpose. And that purpose will never lead her where grace cannot carry her. So she lets go, not because she's giving up, but because she's finally allowing something greater to take over. And in that surrender, she finds a new kind of strength. A peace that doesn't depend on circumstances. A joy that isn't shaken by change. A confidence that says, I may not know what's next, but I trust the one who does. And that trust becomes her freedom. That surrender becomes her power. That letting go becomes her way of rising. Have you ever noticed how we're always in a rush? Rushing to wake up, to work, to respond, to check our phones, to achieve something. But in this race, we forget to pause and ask ourselves the most important question. In all this business, am I still connected to myself? Not to the world, not to the chaos, not to the notifications, but to myself and to the God within me. You see, modern life is designed to keep us running. From the moment we open our eyes, the world demands our attention. But God doesn't shout, my friends. He whispers, and if we don't learn to slow down and tune in, we'll spend our entire life living fast, but feeling empty. Let me ask you something very honestly. Have you ever had a moment where you were surrounded by success, by people, by tasks, but still felt deeply alone, unsettled, or disconnected? That's not failure. That's not weakness. That's just a soul longing to come back home to God. Spirituality is not about running away from life. It's not about sitting on top of a mountain in silence. It's about bringing God into the small moments, into your breath, your walk, your work, your words. It's about finding calm in chaos and purpose in pressure. So today, I want to share with you 5 simple yet profound ways to invite spirituality into your busy life. Without quitting your job, without changing your schedule completely, but just by changing your attention and deepening your connection with the divine. Because in the end, it's not the speed of life that destroys us. It's the absence of depth. Let's dive into the journey that transforms routine into sacred and business into presence. There is something sacred about how we begin our day. The way we start our morning often decides the pace, the mood, and even the energy of everything that follows. But have you noticed how easily we trade that sacredness for noise? The first thing most people touch in the morning is not their heart, not their breath, not even their thoughts. It's their phone. Before we've even looked at the sky or felt the breath of a new beginning, we're already checking messages, reading headlines, or scrolling through someone else's life. And without realizing it, we invite the whole world into our mind before we even had a chance to meet ourselves. But imagine this. You wake up, and instead of reaching for your phone, you reach for your breath. You sit up slowly, place your feet on the ground, and for just 2 minutes, you close your eyes. You're not reciting anything. You're not rushing. You're just being. You're giving your soul the first attention of the day. You're listening to the silence, and in that moment, it's as if the entire universe pauses with you. The chaos of the world is still there, but it's waiting outside the door of your awareness. In this inner space, there is only you and God. This is the difference between reacting to life and responding with presence. When you begin your day in silence, you build a spiritual armor around your mind. You start from a place of calm, not from anxiety. You connect with the deepest part of you. The part that doesn't care about likes, deadlines, or morning traffic. The part that only cares about truth, meaning, and peace. It may seem small, even trivial. What difference can 5 minutes make? But let me ask you something. If the foundation of a house is off by just a few inches, won't the entire structure eventually become unstable? That's exactly what happens when we skip the foundation of stillness each morning. We may look functional on the outside, but inside, we're shaking, uncertain, and reactive to everything. But those who begin their day in silence are not easily shaken. They've tasted peace before the world could disturb it. I remember meeting a very successful woman at a seminar. She was leading a major corporation, managing thousands of employees, and juggling the chaos of boardrooms, emails, and constant travel. I asked her, "How do you stay so centered in such a busy life?" She smiled and said, "Every morning, before I touch the world, I touch the silence. It's the only way I remember who I really am." That line stayed with me. Before I touch the world, I touch the silence. And silence doesn't mean emptiness. Silence means fullness. It is in silence that God speaks most clearly. Not through loud miracles, but through subtle whispers. We often wait for God to appear in grand moments, but God is always present in the still ones. A quiet sunrise, the rhythm of your breath, the pulse in your chest. These are not distractions. They are invitations. Invitations to remember that before we were professionals, parents, students, or achievers, we were, and still are, divine beings having a human experience.